that out of the way, going through my maps, what did they specifically film for Season 2 in Wales? Filming took place in the northwest of Wales, in and around Snowdonia National Park, in the counties of Gwynedd and Anglesey, which are separated by the Menai Strait. It's sort of like how Manhattan is an island in New York, that Anglesey is technically an island, but it's connected by bridges to the mainland. It's north of Gwynedd. So there's two main bridges through there. And the center of the park is mountainous, but they were filming both in the mountains and in quarries along the coast. And it's actually really diverse with these valleys. Sometimes there's really flat plains once you get past the mountains on the eastern side. So I'm going to go break this down into the two counties, two groupings. First, at Trevor Quarry, they built an extensive Dragonstone exterior set, which makes sense. It's on the coast, it's an island. We didn't really have a Dragonstone exterior for Season 1 that of the scale they needed. And this is mostly for the castle exteriors, not the distinct from the rest of Dragonstone. Llanthuin was the other part, I'll get to that. But, I mean, they said we didn't go back to northern Spain to film on that famous bridge, because the stuff we wanted to do with the camera you couldn't practically do on a narrow bridge, which is in the middle of this rocky outcropping. We couldn't get the camera where we needed it. You have to think of how would we get a camera there and spin around and do things. So it made sense. Due to physical limitations, it needed to be on the virtual set. But then other stuff of like one or two shots of them on the beach, they just would film that in Cornwall. Like the boys practicing, and of course the ancient Valyrian altar they have outside nature gods and all that. The altar they have for the Valyrian services, like Rhaenyra and Daemon's wedding, and then baby Visenya's funeral and Rhaenyra's crowning. That's on Monsanto Mountain in Portugal. They're not going back there because it was too remote. The helicopters they needed together, it wasn't worth going back. So in terms of castle battlements, and I don't know, I hope we get scenes of like Bela training to ride Moondancer in the courtyard of Dragonstone. I don't know if they're going to do it. We didn't see specific spy photos, but they need more castle exteriors for Dragonstone, like the battlements or something. So the exteriors of Dragonstone Castle have been built at Trevor Quarry, and are going to be a major filming location on a scale of years through the end of this show and probably into the next spin-offs, if and when they have talked about doing Targaryen Conquest. Most prequels would actually have Dragonstone. I mean, those are two big ones. If it's in Westeros, even on maybe like a Duncan Egg wouldn't, but Duncan Egg don't go to a lot of things. Like even like a Blackfire Rebellion show would mention Dragonstone, but the big ones that they're throughout the run of this into a Regency show, and particularly Targaryen Conquest, this is going to be a major location they visit time and again. This is Dragonstone. The next really big one where they built a huge exterior set, and there was a ton of filming there, was further east at Dinorwig Quarry, is where they built Harrenhal. And as you can see on my map here, it's about 8 miles northeast of that, and I looked on Google Maps, it's about a 20-minute drive south of the Menai Strait. Just to give you a sense of where everything is, Trevor Quarry is a bit southwest of everything else. But it's still, everything's like a 20-minute drive from something else. If you're going overland through the mountains, it's quite a trek, but if you're using one of the highways, it's a 20-minute thing. And the other nice thing about Dinorwig, which is this giant slate quarry that was later abandoned, but it's this big slate quarry, they can build all sorts of stuff there. It is located on a big lake, just like Harrenhal is. It's at the God's Eye. It's on Llyn Padron. Llyn means lake. So there's a big lake there. It's this giant abandoned slate quarry where they have built Harrenhal, which is one of, if you know the books, it's one of the major locations in the Dance of the Dragons, because it's the heart of the war zone. That the main front of the war is in the Riverlands, so a lot of action will be taking place there. These are two Huge locations. There were 4 locations in Gwynedd. As for the other 2, takes a bit of explanation about the geography here, that the chain of mountains that runs north-south through the middle of Snowdonia National Park has 3 ranges that are divided by 2 mountain passes. So the north range is called the Carnets, and the middle range is called the Gliders, and the south range is Snowdon. The Snowdon range is named after Mount Snowdon, which is the tallest mountain in Britain outside of the Scottish Highlands. The northern pass and the southern pass. The northern pass between the Carnets and the Gliders, that is called Nant Franken. And the southern pass, they did film in the northern pass. This season they didn't film in the southern pass. Is Llanberis Pass, which goes through the town of Nant Paris, and then on to, it's the valley of Llanberis, but then the pass of Penna Pass. It's it's this twisting, turning mountain valley where there's points where it's a valley and points where it's a pass, where it widens and shortens, and each leg of the journey has a different name. So I'm not sure whether it's Llanberis Pass or like the eastern part right in the mountains themselves is Penna Pass. Doesn't matter, they didn't film there this season, thankfully. What they did film was in the northern pass. This is east of Dinorwig. Really beautiful mountain shots. The mountain pass of Nant Franken. Within the pass, there's a region called Ogwen Valley. Spy photos from hikers taken from like a mile away, but we saw activity there. Not huge activity, but we saw people with horses there. They filmed something in Ogwen Valley. It was a brief scene with a few horse riders, and my functional guess is what scene would require huge mountains in the background? Not the Riverlands. Probably not the Westerlands. I mean, maybe a little, but they filmed Golden Tooth as a mountain pass, and yet they filmed it in Bourne Wood. Probably because it was a scene that involved like 30 horses, and it would be difficult to get that many horses up in the mountains. So they filmed it at Bourne because it's closer to Leavesden, their main hub. I think it's because of the number of horses they needed there. You can get like 2 horses up in a mountain pass in a trailer versus a lot. That's hard. So my running guess is that this is the Vale of Arryn. And these are like maybe part of Rhaenys' story. It would be part of Rhaenys' storyline in the Eyrie, or maybe with Jace. Probably the Vale is what they were filming in Ogwen Valley. Not that it matters, because we had independent leaks stating they're going to the Vale or going to the Eyrie, and they already said they would in dialogue, just that they're actually filming extensive stuff there outside. And, like, I don't think we'd need riders in the mountains for the Starks, because if they were visiting the Wall, they would need snow, and it wasn't snowy when they filmed it. Versus when they filmed Night's Watch guys in Bourne Wood, they had snow dressers making a snowy forest. So Ogwen Valley is probably the Vale of Arryn, which makes sense because the Vale is sort of like Wales in that it's defended by mountains and there's these defensive passes, but in between there's these lush valleys. The last location is the most important of all because it's the one we couldn't identify, and there are a couple of candidates. This is the main point of this video before I move on to Anglesey. This is the question mark. They filmed near Penmachno at the old Roman bridge. This is, if you go west to east, it's Dinorwig Quarry, then the main chain of mountains where Ogwen Valley is. This is farther to the east. This is east of Ogwen Valley, east of the mountains. You're in gently rolling hills and plains again. And there's the river Machno. The prefix pen means head, promontory of like a piece of land. So it's Penmachno literally means head of the Machno, the town at the head of the Machno River, Penmachno. And we got some pretty good spy photos from the Penmachno Roman Bridge. It's not actually a Roman bridge architecturally. It was an old Roman road that crossed a ford. And in the medieval period, they built a bridge over the Roman road. So there's the medieval bridge built over the Roman road. It's not a Roman bridge. But it kind of slurred into calling it the Roman Bridge, because it's the bridge on the Roman road. It wasn't built by Romans. Same thing. There is sort of, like a ravine where the river has carved out the landscape a little, but it's like, 15 to 20 feet and sloping. It's not this giant mountain valley the way Ogwen Valley is, where there's these stunning mountains in the sides. And looking at other, like Wikipedia and stuff, other photos of the township of Penmachno, the defining feature of this place isn't giant mountains or even hills or even a ravine. There's this pretty impressive river flowing through it in a relatively flat, there's rolling hills, but it's relatively flat. This isn't like a ravine like the Bridge of Skulls or the Gorge, it's the west end of the wall or anything. We saw a battle, we saw dummies for both people and horses, and we could not identify heraldry. The designs on the armor are distinct, but we couldn't tell what they were for. There's 3 candidates for this, for Season 2. And we can't decide, and it's kind of in flux. First off, there's 2 battles that happen near a river. You have the Battle of the Honeywine, and then you have the Battle of the Burning Mill, which mentions in passing that the mill was next to a river. But frankly, the river wasn't part of the story. Like, you could forget that it was even mentioned that the mill was near a river. It's a water mill. Doesn't matter. It didn't affect, like, the geography of the battle. Compared to, like, Battle of the Blackwater, Stannis had to get his men through the river crossing. It's not part of the geography of a battle that there's a river in it. The Battle of the Burning Mill is the opening battle in the Riverlands between the Blackwoods and the Brackens. Battle of the Honeywine is by Daeron the Daring with the Hightower army in the Reach. But again, the river doesn't really take that much part in the geography of the battle. And some people said these bodies looked burned. I thought they're dirty because they're dead. The third option, which is the one I lean towards, and I want to hear all of you discussing this in the comments, is that this might be the Battle of the Red Fork of the Trident, which is when the Lannister army forces a ford to cross into the Riverlands. It's the beginning of their invasion of the Riverlands. Because why would you need to film near a river? That they could have done Burning Mill anywhere and just mentioned there's a river or CGI'd it in. Battle of the Honeywine, again, they could have filmed that anywhere. We don't even know if it's in Season 2 on top of this. And just CGI'd the river in. But this is, just logically, it's a location shoot that felt the need to film at an exterior location that has a river in a relatively flat plain, but ravine-y enough that it's coming down from mountains. This is geographically exactly what the Red Fork is. The Battle of the Red Fork is coming down from the western mountains of the Westerlands at the Golden Tooth. There's a river flowing out of it that curves south, which they have to ford. Exact same setup in real life. Once you get through the Snowdonia mountain range, there's this river, the Machno River, curving south that people would have to ford. It looks like the setup of the Battle of Red Fork. On top of that, we have seen the spy photos of the Lannister army coming to Golden Tooth, which maybe because they had horses, they filmed that at Bourne Wood, as opposed to Ogwen Valley, but we know there's horses in this battle. We saw dead prop horses. Running theory is that we might, due to casting stuff, I'll talk about this more in the outline, we might see them going to Golden Tooth in Episode 6, and then fighting the Battle of the Red Fork in Episode 8, the finale, as like a climax to that storyline, to give it payoff within the same season. That we haven't seen any casting, this overlaps with my outline video, we haven't seen any casting for the Reach storyline, so that's the least probable that it's the Honeywine. The debate is really, is this the Battle of the Burning Mill between the Blackwoods and Brackens, or is it the Battle of the Red Fork? And I'm leaning towards Red Fork. Also, we think they might have condensed and filmed some of the Blackwood-Bracken stuff at Dinnerwig, though we're not really sure. But that is the open question. Everything else, this is a question mark. Everything else I can label. This is Dragonstone, this is Harrenhal, this is almost assuredly the Vale in Ogwen Valley. It's a vale. I mean, it's the Erie. It's pronounced Erie in Welsh, Snowdonia. I think this is the Battle of the Red Fork at Penmachno. That's everything on the mainland in Gwynedd. Now we shift north to the island of Anglesey. And again, most of the filming was in or around the Menai Strait between Anglesey and Gwynedd. They didn't film anywhere north on Anglesey. Everything they filmed, there was 4 locations all along the southern coast from the bottom to the top. At the very top, the north end of the strait, is Penman. And apparently this was a logistics hub for filming in the region. This was one of their major hubs for doing things. We don't know exactly what they were doing, except that we got spy photos of Corlys Velaryon on a boat in unclear context. Now, when there's a battle scene, they film those on those ship sets that they build at least in studios with a blue screen around them, so they can, full ship sets they can control. This is when you need to film someone getting on a dinghy, on a ferry boat to get from the big warships that can't land. You take a skiff from there to get to the dock. So it was him getting off of a ship or getting onto a ship with the rest of his army. Other than that, we have no idea what it was. Some people speculated it was King's Landing. That is utter speculation. It could have been Driftmark for all we know, or Dragonstone. Generally, we don't think the Battle of the Gullet is this season, and yes, most of the filming for that battle would be at Leavesden in the interior sets where they build the ship sets that we don't have access to in the water tanks, or the blue screen sets. We know they built some ship sets, but we didn't see like full-scale. We would have noticed a full-scale battle on a ship, just from spy drones and the action involved, and we didn't. So we think they're filming like other ship fighting, but not a full-scale battle. Not yet, anyway. So some people want to read into this Battle of the Gullet. It could be anything. That just a point where Corlys is boarding a ship from a skiff. And I don't know what it is. But that's at some point Corlys gets on a ship. Well, no brainer there. A little bit further down the strait from Penman is Beaumaris, where we got a lot of really great photos of about 24 high tower heavy horse. Well, actually, they're the Hygarians. They have Aegon II's new golden dragon sigil. And again, I think that was like, if I had to guess, that's shots of Aegon's army marching to Rook's Rest. But then the actual battle was filmed in Bourne Wood, because like this is them on the march through like Stokeworth and Rosby before they get to Duskendale, and maybe it is Duskendale, before they get to Rook's Rest, which is that far east, is starting to come up against the Pine Barrens of Crackclaw Point, so that would explain why it's a bit more forested and they filmed at the edge of a forest. But it's just a field. It could be anything. It's just it was easy to film horses traveling there. Not a battle, just horses traveling. But the next really big and probably recurring location, probably the last big recurring location in this list, is Llanthwin Beach, which is at the southern tip of Anglesey, at the southern end of the strait. Opposite side from Penman. It's actually a tidal island, not unlike Driftmark, but we know they're using it for other parts of Dragonstone. Because Game of Thrones screwed this up, that Dragonstone isn't just a castle. There are commoner villages on it, more than one, of fishing villages on the island. And there's a volcano on it, which they didn't really mention. There's a bit more than just the castle. So Dragonstone, the castle, is at Trevor Quarry. This is the beaches of Dragonstone on the other side of the Dragonmont volcano. And at Llanthwin Beach, we saw a ton of spy photos of what is blatantly the sowing of the dragon seeds. That they have more dragons than riders on her faction, so they go, let's hold open tryouts of anyone who thinks you're like the grandchild of a Targaryen bastard or something. If you think you have a drop of Targaryen blood in you, you need that to bond with a dragon, so try your luck. And even some people who are blatantly know they are the bastard of a grandson of a Targaryen, like Silver Dennis, they get killed anyway because dragons are fickle. You need more than just more than just Targaryen blood. It's the dragons choose you. So they have tryouts, and eventually 4 succeed. And we saw a lot of spy photos. I already have a separate video on that, but that is where they are filming the sowing of the dragon seeds. So possibly other big Dragonstone beach scenes are being filmed there. I don't think Trevor Quarry in and of itself actually was being used for coastal filming. Like, it's weird. They'd have to travel from Trevor up north to Lanthwin to film a scene of, like, Rhaenyra walking the beach or something. Which leads me to not a Dragonstone scene, but the last thing was just west of Lanthwin Beach. They briefly filmed for like a day, and we had spy photos of Emma Darcy. They were walking the coast with Rhaenyra, her dragon, very briefly at Porthacouch, which is west of Lanthwin. And from spy reports, this is actually supposed to be Rhaenyra secretly flies out at night to Shipbreaker Bay to scan for did Luke survive, and like she either finds his body or finds Arax's head and realizes he's dead. And that's like going to happen in episode 1. This brief scene at Shipbreaker Bay, of the books did it differently. They're playing around with the unreliable narrator that actually Rhaenyra found out that he died, like finding his corpse or something. But they filmed there for like 2 days. That isn't a major location. The big place they filmed in Anglesey that we know of, we don't know what they were doing at Penman. It might have actually been something really important. Lanthwin Beach is a major location for the parts of Dragonstone outside of the castle, where there's a coast. There's also a forest. It's just south of Newborough, that's the closest town. There's this extensive forest there, and that's pretty much what they were filming in Wales. For now, these major locations, but we generally know what all this was. The only questions are, we know at Penman they were filming Corlys getting on a ship, but in what context? Frankly, I don't even include that in my list of exterior locations. We don't know what they were doing. We know it was Corlys getting on a ship. That could just as easily have been, we have spy photos of Leasden Studios has ship sets. Is this the Battle of the Gullet, or is this something else? I'm leaning towards something else. It's not on the scale of the Battle of the Gullet. It would have to be bigger than that. And the bigger ones, though, beyond Lanthwin Beach, it's just a beach. They didn't build anything. Or Ogwen Valley, it's a valley. They built this giant Dragonstone exterior at Trevor Quarry. They built Harrenhal and maybe other stuff at Dinorwig Quarry, further east of that. And the one big question mark is, what the heck did they film on the Machno River crossing? Lowest probability is it's Honeywine. We don't even know that's in there. Battle of the Burning Mill happened to be near a river, but didn't really involve the river. I'm leaning towards that this is the Battle of the Red Fork, and this will essentially be treated as the action finale of the final episode, of episode 8, because it's an 8-episode season. We look at the photos. We can't recognize the armor designs. It's a new design anyway. I'll be going over this in my outline video. I apologize for taking at least 45 minutes on this, but it's not just for Season 2. This is summarizing everything since April and setting up, hey, we're going to be filming here for the next 5 to 10 years. I should probably go over how their pronunciation rules work so I don't embarrass myself. But after this, I'll be moving on to the Season 2 outline video.